and how it comes and it just starts to begin to show you so many things, even things you thought you knew. It just goes in deeper and deeper and deeper. So I'm going to read Proverbs 27, verse 5 and 6. And it says, "An open rebuke is better than love carefully concealed. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful." And pretty much what it's saying is, when our friend, a genuine friend, this is talking about a genuine friend in our life, when they come in and they correct a wrong in our life, it's trustworthy. Because when a genuine friend comes and they start telling you, like, hey, that's not right, they're normally telling us because they see it's already destroying us. They see it's messing us up. They see us in depression. They come, they try to cheer us up. They see us, mistreating somebody. They're like, hey, what's wrong with you? Knock it off, whatever it is that they see in our life that's not right for us, or that's not right, they're going to tell us something, And normally it gives us life, because if we listen to it, most of the time they're right, because they can see what we cannot see, right? In that moment, they're seeing something we're not seeing, and they know us so well. That's the thing, is when we have these types of friends, they know us well. So they know when we're kind of not acting like ourselves. And they're kind of like coming to you, what's wrong? Like, what's up? Oh, no, nothing. No, something's wrong, because you're acting like this and you're doing this and you normally don't do that. But when they come and correct something, it's trustworthy. We usually trust them. Yeah, it's going to hurt. You know what I mean? At times it's going to hurt. We don't want to hear it. But they're telling us for our good. Their intentions for us are right. And it's way better. I'd rather have somebody be real than somebody who has, who's pretending. They come and they show you like this good side, and they're telling you you're the best, and they're telling you you're amazing, and they're telling you all these different things. But their whole intention is false. They're not, how do you say, their intentions for you, they don't care about you. They really don't. Because if we look at it, the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. Judas is a perfect example. He betrayed Christ with a kiss. His intention was to give him up because he wanted the money. But yet, he went and he showed him affection. So it's sad. I wouldn't want somebody coming and showing me affection if they don't mean it. You know what I mean? If they don't mean it. But it's awesome when we have those that we can trust. It's awesome when we have those type of people in our life that are real and that they're really there for our good. And they want to see the very best for us. But if we're going to look at the reality of things, a lot of times, especially in church, we see the bad side, We see where it turns sideways. We see where people begin to get critical instead of helping each other. So a lot of times people start to get very critical. And I want to turn to Matthew chapter 7. And this is Christ. And he's teaching us some very fundamental things that we always need to consider, that we always need to keep in our heart and in our mind. These are things that we need to watch. Because we don't want to be those people that become critical of each other instead of helping each other. We don't want to be the pretenders. We want to be the genuine ones. We want to be the ones that are doing right. So chapter 7, verse 1, it says, "Judge not, that you be not judged. For with what judgment you judge, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you." So in other words, he's saying, look, don't form or express an opinion about somebody. Because a lot of times the opinions we form about people we are basing that opinion on what we see, not what we know. I mean, we're not God. We don't know the hearts, right? So most of the time, this is what he's talking about when he's talking about do not judge. Do not form an opinion about somebody because it's a disapproving one. A lot of times what we do is we start looking at people based on what we see, and then we start being disapproving of them. And we start feeling a certain negative way towards them. Then we begin to start nitpicking. We start to see everything. And then we start to talk about what we think they deserve. We start to bring sentence on them. They deserve this, they deserve that, they shouldn't be doing this, and they shouldn't be doing that. And we start doing all these things, sentencing them. Because if we do these things, we ourselves are going to get this same judgment. Remember, these are God's children. This is who God picked. This is who God created. This is the thing that God made. So in other words, he's saying, look, don't judge them based on what you see. Don't base it just on what you think, on your own opinion. Don't base it on our opinion. In verse 3 it says, and why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but do not consider the plank in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me remove the speck from your eye, and look, a plank is in your own eye? Hypocrite, first remove the plank from your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. And it's so crazy because what it's saying is, look, you're over here looking and observing at the little splinter in your brother's eye. So it's a splinter it's talking about, a little splinter. But here you have a big old beam coming out of your own eye, you know? And so, go ahead. So here's our picture. You see that tiny little speck inside his eyeball, right? You can barely see it. And then this guy with this big old log in his eye, he's like, dude, you've got a speck in your eye. You know, that's exactly what it looks like. It's pretty ridiculous when we're over here with this big old log and we're trying to point out this tiny little thing in somebody else's life, So this is where we start to go wrong, because we begin to become the critic. We become the critic. And we start honing in on somebody's faults. Have we ever noticed that the moment somebody starts rubbing us the wrong way, all of a sudden we notice everything wrong about them? It's no longer just that one thing that they did. Now I'm noticing everything they do. You see the way they chew? You see the way they walk? You see the way they dressed? You see the way they looked at me? I mean, seriously, you know what I mean? All of a sudden it went from one thing to 10 things that are wrong with them, right? You start to hone in. But see, that's not even the problem. The problem comes from the attitude of the heart. Because the attitude of the heart, in our heart, when we start looking at these people in a critical way, we start to condemn them in our hearts. We start to think that they don't deserve the godly things. We start to think they don't deserve this and they don't deserve that. But when the church becomes critical of one another, we are in danger of bringing a bad testimony to God. We are misrepresenting God, because remember, God inspires us to love one another, right? The love of God inspires us to love. But when we have a critical heart, we have a condemning heart. Therefore, we make the church look bad. Now we're giving the church a bad name. We're giving the church a bad testimony, because the outsiders are looking at us like, I thought it was all about love. I thought this and I thought that. So when they're looking from the outside in, we're misrepresenting God. And we can try to pull it off. We can try. But somebody steps in and they're like, oh, that person has a problem with that person. That problem has a problem with that person. Boom, like that. Just like that. And we're over here like, oh man, well, I thought I was hiding it pretty good. I smiled at them. You know what I mean? So now everything's about that person and how they're bothering us and what they're doing, the things that they're doing. We're paying too much attention in a very critical way. We pay attention to everything that they're doing. Therefore, we start to deceive ourselves thinking that we're better. We start to deceive ourselves in thinking that we do things better. We act like a better Christian. We behave like a better Christian. And we're the person with the log. You know what I mean? Like, that's us. We're the person with the log. Because the thing is we start to think that we're better, and then we start to not trust those people around us. When we have a critical heart, we begin to push others more further and further and further away. Now we're in a place where we can start to pretend that we care. We pretend into their face. That's why he's talking about hypocrites. Because to their face, we're going to pretend like we care about them. But the moment that they're not in our face, it's like our hearts are just so against them. We have this thing against them. We don't like them. We don't care for them. But only when we look at our own actions first, and we're not blind to our own shortcomings, when we're not blind to our own faults, that's when we can actually speak truth. That's when we can actually see clearly. Because it's crazy that a lot of times a lot of times you hear it and you see it all the time. You see people doing something and they're like, oh my gosh, that person, or the kids, right? You know, like the kids. Oh, their kids are doing this. Stop doing that, kids. Your kids are doing the same thing. You're not yelling at them. You're yelling at somebody else's kids. You know what I mean? You are, you're like the person that likes to talk to people, and you're over there like, oh, well, they do this and they're talking too much. Well, you're talking too much. You know what I mean? Like, just dumb things that we can get caught up in. Dumb things that we can get caught up in, that we can see clearly that other people have those faults. But the thing is, a lot of times, a lot of things that we don't like in others is because it's in us, right? That's what my mom always used to tell me. You hate that because you yourself do it. What? That's not even true. That's not possible. What you mean? And then you start looking at yourself, you're like, oh, okay, kinda. Kinda. It's true. I don't like that they do this, but somehow, some way, I have that same issue. We need to be able to deal with ourselves first. We need to be able to get rid of the hindrances that are in our own life. We need to be able to do that, because when we own up to our own things, now we can help somebody else. But when we're the person that's always in denial, I don't do that. I didn't do that. Even though you have 5 witnesses that said you did it. 5 witnesses. They're like, yes, you did. We saw you. We heard you say it. No, I didn't. Well, then, you know what? Go on your merry way. Go about your merry way. Have fun with yourself, because I ain't got time for that. I do not have time for that. But yet, you have this thing where it's like, God, change me. Help me. I want to see. I want to see clearly, Lord. I don't want to have a big old log in my eye, and then I turn around and I'm banging everybody. The wound of a friend. You know what I mean? It's my log just hitting you. It's not even the word of truth. You know what I mean? It's like, that's how ridiculous we can look. But when we get to this place, when we love our brethren, when we care for our brothers, we're going to come and tell them the wrong in love. We're going to tell them because we care. We're going to tell them because it's going to bring life to them. We're going to tell them because it's good. I'm not coming to them condemning them. I'm not coming to them thinking I'm better than them. I'm not coming to them because I think that I'm this holier than thou Christian and that you're doing everything wrong, so I'm the only one that can teach you how to do something right. You know? It's like, no, I'm coming because, man, that is a struggle that God doesn't want you dealing with. That is a struggle that's going to mess up your walk with God. We are able to speak to a wrong. Jesus did it all the time. The book of Proverbs tells us the wound of a friend, right? So God's not saying we can't be honest, that we can't speak to something. What God's saying is when we're speaking it in judgment, when we're speaking it in condemnation, when we're being false about our own intentions and the way we feel about them. We're not going, and people can feel it. If you're coming at me with some false pretense, I'll probably feel it. And then you'll see a different side. You know what I mean? You're going to get what you're giving me. You know, but if I'm coming to you in love, you're going to know it. You're going to feel it. You know that I'm coming from a place where it matters to me if you're going to fall short in the will of God. If you're going to fall short in the kingdom of God. If you yourself are selling yourself short, you know, because we get stuck in ruts and, you know, we get stuck in our own thoughts, in our own ways, and we start acting certain ways. You know, a lot of times we don't realize it until somebody comes and tells us. So God's not telling us that we can't speak to things. What God is saying that when you do speak, you need to do it in the right way. We need to do it in the right way. And we're going to speak to those things that are contradictory to the word. We're going to speak to those things that have to do with the flesh, right? When I come to you, I'm not going to come and be like, hey, you're wrong. You're not, you're going to miss it. I'm not coming to you trying to judge your life. I'm coming to you and I'm saying, hey, you know, this area in your life, this is something that's messing you up. It's tripping you up, you know, and you probably want to deal with that. This is something that you want to deal with. Otherwise, it's going to bleed into every other area of your Christian walk. So I'm judging the wrong. I'm judging the flesh. Hey, that's flesh. You know, you're acting in the flesh. Where's the spirit at? You know, so that's what you'll probably hear me talk about. But I'm not going to judge you personally because that's only God's job. I can't take God's job. I can't say whether you're right before him or you're wrong before him. I can't say that. I don't have that kind of authority, you know. I don't know. Only God knows where you're at. Only God knows where you'll end up. But if we're family, you know, and this is what I love about family, is we see each other's weaknesses and struggles. When you're, you know, close family, you see each other's weaknesses. You see each other's struggles. But in the church, sometimes that can create a sense of fear. You don't want people to see your weakness. You don't want people to see your struggles because you think that they're going to talk about you. You think that they're going to spread these things about you. So you feel vulnerable. And we don't like to feel vulnerable. You know, we don't like to feel vulnerable. So we kind of keep it very shallow with each other. You know, we keep it very shallow. But there's safety when you find trustworthy friends. There's safety when you find real people that are genuine in the way they love. Because these types of people, the real genuine friendships, they love us beyond our faults. They love us beyond our weakness. They love us beyond our struggles. And as a matter of fact, they come alongside of us and they cover it with love. They cover our faults. They go into prayer. And they keep us accountable. They keep us accountable to get us past our issues. If they know we have an issue and they know that we're struggling, they're going to check in on us. They're going to be like, hey, you all right? How's it going? How are you doing in this area? Are you slacking? Are you going deeper? Are you going backwards or are you going forward? You know, they keep us accountable. But yet, we feel their friendship. We feel it. And this is when we trust them. This is when they have proven themselves. Those kind of people. You know, the ones that have proven themselves that they're willing to walk the extra mile with me. They're willing to go the long haul with me. They're willing to overlook all my faults. They're not looking at me and trying to criticize and nitpick and pull me apart. They're not tearing me down. They're building me up. And I want to turn to James. You don't have to turn there if you don't want. But in James chapter 5, verse 16, it says, confess your trespasses to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. The effective fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. See, when we have become more than just people who come to church together, when we become a family, when we find those people that stick closer than a brother to us, we're going to be able to be honest with them. We're going to be able to tell them our weaknesses. We're going to be able to tell them where we're struggling. We're going to be able to feel safe with them. They're not going to tear us down. They're not going to push us away. They're not going to look at me with condemnation in their heart. They're not going to judge me. They're not going to feel as if they're better than me. And we're not talking about sinful, we're not talking about the sins that separate us from God. You know, we're talking about hindrances. We're talking about things that we struggle with. Now, if there's a brother or sister that's in sin that says it's going to take you out of heaven, then us as a brother and sister, we need to do everything that we can to try to turn them back to Christ. Right? I'm not going to sit there and be okay with that. You know, I'm not going to sit there and deceive you and lie to you as if you're okay when you're not. I mean, I can't do that. That's not even in my heart to do. But we still need to do it in love. We still need to do it right. And we shouldn't allow others from the outside to come in and begin to criticize our brothers and sisters either. Sometimes people from the outside begin to start trying to criticize everything. But we must remember that we are the example. We cannot jump in and start talking with them. We can't jump in and be like, yeah, you're right. Oh, and they do this. Oh, hold on. Let me tell you this too. You know what I mean? We can't do that. That's our brother and sister. We need to learn to turn our critics into believers by the way we love, by the way we are an example, by the way we show them how we genuinely care for one another. See, because genuinely loving one another is not easy. It's not easy. It's easy when we see each other only a couple times a week. That's easy. I can love you all day. You know what I mean? But let me start to get super close to you. Let me begin to see the faults. Let me begin to see how you actually are and how you actually act. There's going to be things that probably drive me crazy. Just like there's going to be things about me that drive you crazy. But the amazing thing about God's love is that actually binds us together, not separates us. It shouldn't separate us. My shortcomings should not separate our relationship. As a matter of fact, the love of God working through you should draw you closer to me. Because you can see that my love for God is genuine, that my desire for God is real, and I want to do all that God's called me to do, and I'm going to do my very best to serve God to the best of my ability. Not perfect, not exactly the way they think I should do it, but you know what? With all of my heart, with all of my might, with all of my strength, I'm going to do it. And so even when you're seeing my shortcomings, you're drawing closer because you're like, man, I have one mind. I want to serve God. I want to go forward. I'm going to give God my all. And you have the same heart as me. You have the same mindset as me. You have the same goals as me. Let's go. And because you have the same mindset as me, I'm looking at you like, all right, let's jump in. Let's do this. Let's go together. I'm not pushing you away because it's like, well, I don't like what you do. I'm not pushing that away. Now, if it's something that's going to hinder you, I might bring it up. And most of the time, God gives full opportunity. I will not even be shy about that. You know what I mean? I don't have to go far. God just opens the door. Sometimes you have to pry it open, but hey. Nevertheless, right? But it's all coming back to we trust, we believe. It all comes back to God is the center of each and every one of our relationships. It comes back to I have a genuine brother, I have a genuine sister in the Lord that I can turn to when I'm weak, that I can turn to when I feel like I can't do it, that I can turn to when I'm like, look, I need you to hold up my hands. Isn't that the beautiful thing? Isn't that amazing? Isn't that what Christ created? He created that type of atmosphere with his disciples. They saw all of each other's weaknesses. They saw all of each other's faults. And all I ever picture when Jesus is correcting them is that upside the head. That's all I picture because that's all I can feel him do to me sometimes. Upside the head. Oh, ye of little faith. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, you're right, you know. You're right. Okay, stand up, you know. Stand up. Sometimes it feels like we're sinking. Sometimes it feels like we're drowning. Sometimes it feels like we're not being heard. Sometimes we feel like we're being overlooked. Sometimes we feel like everybody's turning against us. Sometimes it feels like, you know, the enemy's right here, trying to bring division between one another, trying to create something that's not even there. It's not until we come and talk to each other. It's not till we become open with each other. It's not until we say, look, I count you as a real sister. I count you as a real brother. And stop looking at the weakness. We all have weakness. We all have a weakness. But the thing about having the brothers and sisters is they come and cover that weakness and become my strength in that area. In the area you're weak in, we should be able to come in and become your strength in that area. None of us should be doing this alone. None of us should be, falling back. Now, some of us will still see fall back. Some people will still see fall off. But it shouldn't be because we didn't try. It shouldn't be because we didn't love them enough. It shouldn't be because we were the ones that made them feel like they were less than. It should never be because of those reasons. Everybody still has a decision to make. Everybody still has an ability to make decisions. But as far as it concerns us, we shouldn't be the reason. Now, yes, we shouldn't look to people to make our relationship with God. We shouldn't. Because if you're looking at a person to say, well, I'll serve God as long as you do this, or as long as you act like this, then we're taking that away from God himself. Because people are still people. People are still going to falter. People are still going to fail. People are still going to make mistakes. So we shouldn't look to them, but we should for sure try to be the best example we can be. And try to do it to the best of our ability with a genuine heart. Because a genuine heart goes a long way. It goes a long, long way. Even when we make mistakes, people are willing to forgive those mistakes because they know you're real. They know you're genuine about what you desire for them. And so people are willing to overlook it more easily. Versus if we try to pretend we care. And when we do something wrong, then it's going to come out, well, it's not like you cared anyway, so I don't want nothing to do with you. You know? That's when that comes out. Is when we give them a reason. You know? When we give them the reason. And we're not being genuine about our relationships. That's when they're more likely to just like, no, and turn away. But God is faithful. He doesn't tell us that we can't look at things. What he's telling us is that we need to know how to look at things through a righteous perspective. You know? Because there's anger and then there's righteous anger, right? There's speaking into a wrong, condemning, and there's speaking into a wrong with love. There is a difference in everything we do. And if our hearts are right and we are trying to do everything from a righteous perspective, then it's going to go a lot further than anything else. Amen?